The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. Good to be back in studio. Heard very, very positive things about Farron Cousins filling in for me, by the way. A lot of people saying he is the version of me with no hair.
Yeah, he killed it, I think.
He did, right? I think he did really well. Yeah. He'll never be allowed back on the program, of course, now, because he did so well that it was overshadowing me, so he can never come back.
Right, yeah. A little too well.
I'm kidding, actually, but there's no current date where he will be filling in for me again. But on an as-needed basis, I think he's tremendous, absolutely tremendous. Okay. Republican Congresswoman Claudia Tenney is a first-term Republican from New York, and she said in a radio interview yesterday that so many mass murderers end up being Democrats. And, of course, Democrats immediately condemned her remarks. They came sort of in the wake of and in the context of the horrible shooting in Parkland, Florida, and they said that she needs to apologize for politicizing gun tragedies. I think she actually needs to apologize for being wrong, right? She did ultimately apologize. It's just not true that the mass shooters end up being Democrats. In fact, we see that in the United States, the majority of these incidents are committed by individuals who have sort of been indoctrinated, if not into the politics of the Republican Party, into extremist thinking that is right-wing in sort of its fundamental nature. And I'm not saying that in order to politicize in a different direction. I'm just saying she was also incorrect about the facts.
Right. I mean, there's one instance that I can think of where it turned out that the shooter was a liberal, and that was at the Republican baseball practice early in 2017 when Steve Scalise was shot.
That's right.
But it was such a bizarre thing. I know that that shooter followed Bernie, but it doesn't seem like, you know, the ideas of universal health care and free college mesh in any way with taking violence in your own hands and committing an act like that.
That's right. Even if you strongly believe that everybody should have health care because everybody has a right to be healthy in order to pursue a life of whatever, that's not something that is in line with going out and shooting people over. On the other hand, if you believe that, for example, Democrats are allowing dangerous brown people to come in and commit violent acts, that actually is something that if you believe it literally and you're probably a little bit off balance, you might say, hey, I can take a gun and solve that problem, either by shooting some of the people that are passing those laws, as far as I'm being told, or by shooting some of the brown people that are committing the crimes. There's actually a much more clear link as to how these extremist right-wing ideologies would lead to saying, I'm going to try to solve this problem with a gun.
Or they're thinking that the government's becoming too tyrannical, so you have to use your Second Amendment right and fight back.
Absolutely.
Or you can point out a bunch of different instances, like the Oklahoma City bombing was in response to the tragedy at Waco.
That's right.
They always come up with some justification.
No doubt about it. So yeah, this was a completely out-of-place comment for her to make. She's apologized for it. It also just was just factually wrong. And I do, anytime I see that comment about politicizing shootings, I don't really love that, because whenever we want to talk about common sense gun safety after a shooting, the pro-gun right will say it's not the time to politicize it. And of course, I've said before, it's political, right? The reason why gun laws are the way they are is political. So any opportunity to talk about changing those laws is actually good. So I don't necessarily want to go to using that blanket term, because I'm critical of that phrase, don't politicize shootings. I just think what she said was not only completely insensitive and not related to the solutions to the problem, but it also happened to be wrong. And that's really my problem with it.
Yeah, especially if you look at terrorism. Around the world, it is Muslims who commit most of the terrorist acts.
Yes.
But since 9/11, it's mostly been right-wingers who do it here
in the United
country.
States. Yeah.
And, you know, these are usually people far on the right. Maybe they're anarchists. It's not, you know, the typical guy down the street who just thinks that we need less taxes and less government and is against abortion. But if you take a look at the fringes, it often tends to be the people on the right.
No question about it. And the Southern Poverty, listen, it's not Pat or me saying this. The Southern Poverty Law Center and numerous other groups, Anti-Defamation League and others, keep records on this stuff. And we have data, right? It's not unknowable. It is very, very knowable. I've been saying for a while, and I've been saying it because the medical community has also been saying it, I didn't come up with this on my own, that delaying giving kids peanuts for a very long time because of the fears around peanut allergies could be causing more peanut allergies. In other words, it's becoming sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it appears that that's true. There's now a treatment meant to help prevent serious allergic reactions to peanuts. And it's been tested on a number of children, and it works quite well. And it's daily capsules of peanut flour. And the basic idea is exposure therapy or building a tolerance to it. And it, in early tests, has worked really well. And doctors are testing different doses of peanut flour in capsules. They can be sprinkled over food. They can be gradually increased over time. And it seems to have a very positive impact on reducing some of these peanut allergies. And I think that this is, whenever you have a trend in the United States along these lines, very often the fear actually makes the problem worse. And with peanuts, we've been seeing that. And there are parents who will not allow their kids to have any peanuts until they are, I don't know what age, and they think that they're doing something really good, but it can actually be causing more allergies to take hold.
Yeah, that makes sense, because if you have a newborn, you may not know what they're allergic to, right? So you're going to be a lot more wary about if you're going to feed them dairy or peanuts or any of these things that people commonly have allergies to.
Yes, and with some of them, there is sort of more sense to it, and with some there is less sense to it. And I think that we are going to learn a lot more about this. And it's frustrating because we want to keep kids safe. And of course, there's a natural instinct, an understandable instinct to keep kids out of harm's way. So you've got peanut-free tables in the lunchroom,
right,
or peanut-free lunchrooms altogether, or peanut-free classrooms, or whatever else. But that can also be making kids more likely to be allergic. And we've seen this where when parents have a sort of more, I don't want to use a word with a negative connotation, but a sort of more obsessive desire to keep kids away from any kind of germs or dirt, we know that it actually leads to a less strong immune system in many cases. And we've seen this with antibacterial soap. It can also cause problems. Anyway, I get it. I get the motivations. Even without being a parent, I understand the motivations. But we really want to go to the science to figure out whether we're making the problem worse.
Yeah, I remember last week on a bonus show, you hinted that a lot of peanut allergies could just be due to a lack of exposure while the children are growing up. That's the first time I had ever heard of this. So when I saw a story that seemed to show that there's testing that can be done that can prevent all of this from happening, I had to jump on it.
Well, the more you know. What else can I say? The wife of Kentucky State Representative Dan Johnson, who committed suicide last year because presumably of allegations of sexual assault, has lost a bid to succeed her late husband. So this was a special election which has given the seat back to Linda Belcher. Dan Johnson, who committed suicide, had successfully unseated Linda Belcher. Dan Johnson's wife tried to win the seat back, and she failed, losing 32 to 68. Rebecca Johnson getting 32% of the vote, and not enough, as most people with a passing familiarity with math and majorities know, 32% not enough to win that race in this case. Very sad. Tragic situation. Johnson's wife, Rebecca Johnson, the day after his death, she said, I'm going to go after this House seat. And I mean, I can't imagine the grief that she would be experiencing. At the same time, there were allegations of sexual assault against her late husband, and who knows how that might have been impacting sort of her circumstances. But just a unique circumstance in all ways.
Yeah, people respond to grief very differently, too. So in her case, it was to, I guess, make sure that his legacy lived on and take hold of his seat. But it wasn't going to work. I saw the swing was about 80 percentage points. So this Republican won in the Trump wave back in 2016 and won by a sizable margin. And then his widow lost recently. If you put those two margins together, it's like an 80% difference. And I think that shows the blue wave that's, in response to Trump and all of his antics.
That is truly, truly wacky.
Do you think, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, is this a good sign for Democrats? Do you think this stuff will continue into the 2018 midterms and
I
beyond?
have no idea. I mean, I think it's better to just assume it won't, play it safe, assume it won't, and realize that the get out the vote effort just needs to be feverent, to take a word out of Urban Dictionary coined by former producer Louis Motamedi. I think we need to be feverent in our pursuit of voters in 2018.
We always want to zero in on one case and say that this will apply to the future and make predictions off of it.
Risky.
But sometimes what you see is all that's there.
Sometimes it is. Yeah. Sometimes it is just an apple and nothing else, or whatever. I don't know. By the way, now CNN has a banana version of the Apple ad as well. I don't know.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I thought the whole thing was that if people tell you this is a banana, don't believe them, it's an apple. But now there's a spin-off?
I think there is. I thought, unless I misunderstood the ad, but I thought that there was a banana version of it now.
Wow, I didn't know that CNN was paid off by the produce industry.
Yeah. It's sad, right? Very, very sad and low energy. Okay, what announcements do we have? I guess just that tomorrow's bonus show will be very abbreviated because of the Monday holiday and the guest hosting on Tuesday and Wednesday. I don't think I have to say much beyond just anticipate a very short Friday bonus show, and then we will get back on track next week with sort of like a regular week of programs, right? I think that's it. I don't think we have to say more.
And please don't hate us. I mean, it's been a tough week, and sometimes we have to do an abbreviated bonus show.
Don't hate us, don't cancel, and we will talk to you tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.